Thank you for joining the Black Hue Society Voices Across the Spectrum podcast. I'm Rosalind Martin, your host, a voice actor and mom of a young adult with autism spectrum disorder, or ASD. This podcast is dedicated to enlightening, nourishing, and uplifting Black parents of adult children with ASD. Managing the daily responsibilities that come with the ASD diagnosis are challenging enough on their own. Layer on issues of racial discrimination, systemic injustices in the legal system, healthcare disparities, and more, and the journey becomes even more daunting. Too often, we as Black parents of adults with ASD feel overlooked and adrift in life's complexities. We either don't have the same supports and networks we had when our children were younger, or we never had them at all. We crave moments of recognition where we can feel acknowledged, heard, and truly understood. The Black Hue Society Voices Across the Spectrum podcast serves as a sanctuary of connection, community, and camaraderie where no explanations are necessary. Why? Because we all just get it. During our time together, I'll share insights into ASD, engage experts on various topics, and offer moments of solace and laughter to hopefully help soothe your spirits. Join me so we can navigate this journey together.
I've been missing out for a long time. Was a different guy with a dull mind. Took too many shots of the wrong kind. Dragging my life out to a slow decline. Feeling out of touch yet I don't try. Making my way out to the bright lights. Money never gets me on a good time. It takes away the spark in the right size. Times they never send me. Better too late cold than an overdrive fee. I was waiting for the warm when the sun's gonna peak. I don't need regrets, no, you're never gonna sleep. Never gonna sleep. Never gonna sleep, never gonna sleep. Never gonna sleep. Never gonna sleep. My head's just a little tired, holding up a smirk and you read between the lines. I was waiting for the call and I ain't afraid to die. I was looking for my world when my light gon' shine. Never gonna sleep, when my light gon' shine. Never gonna sleep, never gonna sleep. When my light gon' shine, my light gon' shine. Never gonna sleep, never gonna sleep. When my light gon' shine, never gonna sleep. I've been staying focused on the grind. 18-hour shifts never keep me getting mine. I ain't worried about the trend that's just keeping you behind. Tempted by the God that is bubbling with the light. I've been feeling okay when it comes to things like a no share. Time my life away, that's a big fair. But working for the man leaves you no chance. You're never gonna sleep. You're never gonna sleep. My head's
Welcome to the Black Hue Society Voices Across the Spectrum podcast. I'm your host, Rosalind Martin. My guest during this episode, titled Wills and Special Needs Trust, Protecting the Future of Your Adult Child with Autism, will be Rick Knight, founder and chief servant officer of Servant Financial Group. We'll discuss the critical importance of having a will and, if necessary, a special needs trust in place to help protect the future of your adult child with autism. As parents of adult children with autism spectrum disorder, or ASD, managing the daily care and needs of our children is the top priority for many of us. For example, daily, we dispense medications, assist with hygiene, make medical, dental, social, and all manner of other appointments, shuttle them to and from said appointments, and even color coordinate their outfits on good days. We make their breakfast, lunch, dinner, do laundry, and numerous other things. All of this, mind you, is in between doing our own jobs and running the household itself. In fact, for many of us, we are all our children have. For some of us, our adult children don't have any family, friends, or anyone else for that matter other than us to take care of them at this point. And the thought of what will become of them, God forbid, if something incapacitating or worse happens to us scares the living daylights out of us. So we put the thoughts out of our minds because it makes us sick to our stomachs to process the possibility of our children trying to navigate this mean, ugly world without us. Some of us do have adult children on the spectrum who are more independent, which is great. And some of us do have family and friends who can and will step in to help care for our children if we pass away. And both of these, of course, provide some relief. Let's face it, no one can take care of our children like us. We endeavor to think of everything. Or do we? Did you know that according to a Consumer Report study, 77% of Black non-Hispanic Americans do not have a will? Factors like lack of financial literacy, concerns about cost, or not perceiving the need for a will can all contribute to low will creation rates among Black Americans. No matter our adult child's level of independence and whether we have family or friends we can rely on, it's always prudent to have a will in place to protect not only our assets for our children's sake, but to also make sound, firm decisions about what happens to them if we pass away before they do. Oh yeah, thinking of making your adult child a beneficiary on that insurance policy? Not so fast. Have you heard of a special needs trust or S&T? If you haven't, this is also an important document that parents of special needs individuals don't often know about, or if they do, don't bother to put one in place. It can be a document that is just as critical to have in place as a will. Statistics show that with regards to autism, when asked parents about finances, only 15% believe their child will be financially secure. Only 13% believed their child would be financially independent. Only 12% believe their child will be able to manage some or all of their finances. Additionally, when it comes to estate planning, 78% do not have any form of comprehensive special needs life plan. 56% did not know of any financial professional with the expertise to address these needs. 25% have done no planning at all, and less than 20% have even created a special needs trust. As difficult and heart-wrenching as it may feel, one of the best things that we can do to protect the futures of our adult children with ASD is to ensure that both the will and the special needs trust, if necessary, are in place. Have you been thinking about it but don't know where to start? Curious to learn more about how both can benefit your adult child with ASD? I'm Rosalind Martin, your host of the Black Hue Society Voices Across the Spectrum podcast. Joining me during this episode titled Wills and Special Needs Trust, Protecting the Future of Your Adult Child with ASD will be Rick Knight, founder and chief servant officer of Servant Financial Group. Rick, thank you so much for joining me here on the Black Hue Society Voices Across the Spectrum podcast.
Rosalind, thank you for having me on such an important topic. I am so happy to be here.
Thank you again for joining me, Rick. So, Rick, 77% is startling in terms of the percentage of Black Americans who don't have a will. Now, you've worked with Black Americans in our community for many years and from all walks of life. based on your own experience, do you agree with the factors mentioned by Consumer Reports, like lack of financial literacy, concerns about cost, or not perceiving the need for a will that can contribute to low will creation rates among Black Americans?
I agree with those, but I would like to add a couple.
Please
as
do,
well.
please, because I got a couple on my mind too. So you go first.
One of them is the misconception that I don't have enough assets to warrant creating a will or will creation.
Mm-hmm.
The other one is dealing with the idea of mortality.
Mm-hmm.
I am not going to do this because it may quicken my death.
Yes. But let me tell you how I framed mine. Superstition, right? Because we don't want to admit that, and we didn't want to admit that to Consumer Reports, I'm sure, in that poll, that we feel jinxed somehow, that we're going to die the next day once it's finalized, right? You cleaned yours up a little bit better than mine, but you're right. Go ahead and elaborate.
It's a little bit better now with the younger folks, because there's just so much more information out there to consume about wills and the importance of it. But you can say superstition, that's probably appropriate. But that was just something. Even when you speak to financial literacy, a lot of older African American or his Latin American, wills are for those other folks.
Mm-hmm.
It is for those the haves versus the have-nots mentality. And I tell people all the time, whether they have a child with a disability or not, that when you pass, when you expire, you are going to an estate is created.
Mm-hmm.
Now, who do you want to? Because you're going to leave your loved ones better off, worse off, or the same. Those are the only three choices that you have. Who do you want in charge of distributing what you have worked for and what you left behind? Who do you want to do it? Do you want somebody that never met you, never met any of your family members down at the courthouse that was appointed to be the decision maker? Or do you want to decide on who you want to decide who gets what, who gets mom's hat collection, or who gets dad's gun collection?
And you're right. And you know what I was thinking too, which is sort of tangentially related. I'm thinking of James Brown and I'm thinking of Prince. Although that's not a special needs conversation, but just the fact of tying the assets up in court. I think James Brown, it took 15 years to get all of that settled. It took Prince 6 years. Well, it didn't take him, but you know what I mean? It took 6 years to get all of that hashed out and settled. It's mind-blowing that you would think that people of their stature and notoriety would have had all of that settled. But it's a cautionary tale of what happens when you don't have a will and you've done no estate planning. But, let's sort of jump into, let's see if we can help improve these statistics within our community here. So let's just get to the basics. So what is a will? And why should parents consider having one, particularly as it relates to their special needs child?
Well, particularly if you're speaking to a special need, if you have a child with special needs or a disability, you have to answer the question. And you talked a little bit about it in your intro. You have to answer the question, what would happen to my child with a disability if something were to happen to me, or if I were to die? So a will, the most morbid way that I can put it, but it's the plain truth. A will is your voice from the grave. It's your wishes from the grave.
Yes.
What do I want to happen if something happens to me? It's a legal document that ensures, and it's the only one that ensures that your property, your possessions, your retirement, your famous, your favorite, your 57 Chevy that you restore. It ensures that those things go to the people or the charities that you outline, because when you're gone, you're gone. And if you don't have a will, you have to, your possessions are left to, the subject of whoever gets in trouble. You may say, well, I'm going to leave it, my sister she gave me her word, or my brother or the oldest child is going to take care of that. No, very, very seldom does it happen that way.
Mm-hmm. And I love the way you framed that. It's your voice from the grave. Simply put, that is exactly what it is.
So that's exact. I mean, it's just a legally binding document that makes sure that your possessions go where you want them to go. That's it.
Right. And, the other thing, too, is I think that people don't realize, and it's just sort of food for thought, that without a will, our children, particularly our special needs children, they won't be able to navigate the court system. Right. And it places an undue burden on them and others. Right. It really leaves such a mess for other people to clean up. Right. I think we all know of someone who's had to navigate the court system, right, because someone didn't leave a will in place. Their grandmother, their aunt, their uncle. Somebody didn't leave a will in place. And it's not an easy task to navigate, probate court?
Yeah.
Right, to have to do that. It is not easy to do. It is time consuming. It is draining. It's just not an easy thing to navigate. Right. And people just don't consider that because they're not here to deal with it, obviously. Right. And they're not thinking about how taxing it is for other people to have to try to clean up that mess.
Well, not only that, I mean, when you die intestate, that's what it is when you die without a will. When you die intestate, you are giving the power to judges and court administrators to come in and administer, your home, your land. And there have been many cases over the years where you get an unsavory or dishonest court administrator that has taken property and sold it and profited from it.
Wow.
Land, all of a sudden, your father's prize 57 Chevy is in his driveway.
Oh, wow.
So it's so important. And they don't have an attachment to anything. So they don't have the passion or the wherewithal to say, I saw my dad under the hood of that car for 15 years, turning every wrench, making every spark plug sparkle. And I know he would want so-and-so to have it versus somebody that had never met your dad, doesn't know your family, and says, that's a cool car. I think I want it. So when you have a will, you dismantle all of that. And, I heard you mention James Brown, Prince, and you said, but they didn't have a special needs child. The one that nobody talks about, and there was the need for a special needs trust because there was a special needs trial, is Aretha Franklin. Her oldest son, Clarence, is disabled. And when she died, she didn't have a special needs trust in place. She didn't have a will and trust in place. And had these children, and it's still ongoing right now.
And I thought of that after I mentioned James Brown and Prince too, right? Aretha Franklin popped into my head. So thank you for pointing that out and bringing that up. Please go ahead.
And my fear, because, they found a will up underneath the couch, and then there was no will here, and then all of a sudden reappeared. And my fear is that her oldest son, Clarence, ends up in some facility upstate Michigan without anyone looking after him because she didn't have any directives. She left no directives.
That is horrible. That's horrible to even think about.
And her assets are, they're still fighting over them.
Right. And it's horrible. Right. It's just to even think about that. And you think about people of their stature and notoriety, and you would think, you presume that they have everything in place. They've dotted every I, they've crossed every T, right? But they haven't. And you shudder to think what happens in these cases, particularly where special needs or a disabled child is involved here, right? And we're waiting with bated breath to see what the outcome is, but it shouldn't be that way when these are relatively simple documents to put in place. If nothing else, a will is a simple document to put in place, which, sort of leads me to my next question. So how simple is it, to put a will in place? So how simple is it to prepare? Maybe list preparation options in order of least to most complex and expensive, i.e. do it yourself, like downloading forms online. Can you talk listeners through that?
Yeah, sure. A will can be as complex or as simple as the author wants. If you've got, if you have multiple, and this is where it becomes a lot more important when you have blended families where there's stepchildren involved, and one or the other parent wants, her kids to get the same as your biological kids, or, he wants the same, or vice versa. So, or outside family members that you haven't seen in years, but there's assets there, so they show up as heirs at law. So when you do a will, again, you can make it as simple or as complex, depending on what all you have and what all you want to give or leave behind. And it is a legal document. It requires witnesses. Louisiana still deals with the mystic wills because right now they're still under French law as opposed to British common law. So like Howard Hughes had a will on a shoebox top, a paper bag written, and some of those were acknowledged. But a will is just a proper legal document that you identify yourself, you identify who you want to be the executor or executrix if it's a female, and that's going to be the one that controls who gets what. So they control everything that's coming in and what's going out. If there's death benefits, or if there's retirement benefits, or if you're in the military, if there's military benefits that are available. They'll control all of that. And then what needs to go out, they'll pay for funeral stuff if there's any debts that are left owing by the deceased. And usually a will, the probate, is generally open somewhere between 1 and 3 years. They can go longer depending on how much is done. The executor, whoever is named the executor of the will, needs to be competent. And of a decent age. Don't name, if you're 90, don't name your 90-year-old spouse as the executor of the will.
For obvious reasons. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and you also need to name a secondary in case the primary, has, predeceases you.
And you can also have a co-executor, right? Some people do that.
Yeah, you can. You can have, and when you're doing that, I've seen like a parents who have 2 kids. They'll leave both the kids as the exec, and so one doesn't feel slighted over the other. In instances like that, that's where I've seen the most co-executors. But it's a document. You just do a self-inventory. You introduce yourself to yourself on paper. I have this, and this. I owe this, and this. If something were to happen to me tomorrow, this is what I want to happen.
Well, and then you can also just go online. There's no shortage of websites where you can download a simple will. It's sort of, fill in the blank type situation. Exactly. And you just literally fill in the blanks. You put in your name, you put in your who you want to be the executor of your estate, your dependents. I mean, you really literally just fill in the blanks. And then at the end of it, what is it that you put in? You have your witnesses, I think. So you really just kind of, again, you download the forms, fill in the blanks, and you get it notarized, or you have your witnesses, whatever, you just follow the prompts, more or less.
It can be that simple.
It's that simple, or use a licensed financial professional such as yourself.
No, you need to go to a lawyer. It's a legal document.
So you don't assist with those types of documents?
I can assist, but I don't draft wills. No, again, it's illegal. I can give you all the information, but as far as me drafting it and signing off on it, at least not just in Georgia, but in Georgia, it's a legal document prepared, acknowledged by attorneys. So you have 3 options. You can get a sheet of paper and a pencil and write it yourself. You can download the forms online, or you can go to an attorney. Yes.
Simple, easy breezy. Okay, great. Yeah. All right. And then once you do that, essentially validated, right? Or is that the term?
Yeah,
So that a court recognizes it upon one's death.
Yeah, once it's witnessed, I mean, it doesn't have to be notarized. Getting a notary, is probably a step further to help in validating it when the time comes. But that's not a necessity as long as you have the witnesses.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so let's move into special needs trust or S&Ts. What is a special needs trust, and why should parents consider having one in place for their adult child with special needs?
A special needs trust is a one-trick pony. It does one thing. If you have a child or if you have a disability, you can't have a net worth of more than $2,000 or it will disqualify you from government benefits like SSI, or any of the waivers and all of that. So the net worth has to be under $2,000. $2,000 is a very low threshold. So the special needs trust is created so the assets can be placed there and not jeopardize the individual's government benefits. And I have people all the time who have children with disabilities that will say, I'm going to get a life insurance policy. I'll name my child as the beneficiary, and that'll do it. And if you do that, you put your child in the place of being disqualified from every government benefit that they have.
Wow.
Over their lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
And you may be saying, well, I'll just leave them this $200,000. Well, over their lifetime, based on what the disability is, they could be missing out on millions of dollars in benefits. Mm-hmm. So the special needs trust is created so that the funds can be diverted there and can be used for the benefit of that child. Mm-hmm. And then you need to determine what type of trust you're going to put in place because there's more than one type.
Okay, can we talk about the types?
There's three types, actually. There's the first party trust, a third party trust, and a pool trust. First party trust are usually those trusts. And here's the biggest difference. Mm-hmm. The first party trust is put in place and it has to be approved by Social Security. The first party trust is usually for people that have been in some type of an accident and became disabled and won some type of settlement. So they may have been rewarded, they were injured on the job or they were in an auto accident and became paralyzed or something and they say they won a $2 million settlement. Well, the $2 million can go into the trust and they can continue to get government benefits. Mm-hmm. But here's the trick, or here's the difference as we go into the third party trust. Upon the death of the person, the trust, they've got to pay that money back to the government, whatever is left. Third party trust is usually set up by the family. Mm-hmm. And anybody can contribute to that. And instead of sending a toy for Christmas, here's the account number, put $50 in the special needs trust. Mm-hmm. Those funds, same thing, they are used for the benefit of the child, but you never have to pay the government back.
That's for a third party trust.
Third party trust.
Because I had a question about that was coming later, but since we're here now, let's go ahead and talk about that.
Trust is usually with agencies, some nonprofit agency that serves the disability community, and they have people they like an agency that employs or gets people with disabilities employment. They may be able to put part of their funds in a trust there to save for themselves. Mm-hmm. So those are the only three special needs trusts. The third party trust is the most beneficial with respect because you don't have to pay anything back. Okay,
so the payback requirement then applies to the
first party trust.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So was that sort of the rundown of the pros and cons of the special needs trust, or are there more, like irrevocable, taxable? Costly to maintain? Can we talk about those?
I think that everyone should have a special needs trust, an ABLE account. And the ABLE accounts have only been around since 2014. The Obama administration created the ABLE accounts. It's an acronym, Achieving a Better Life Experience. Mm-hmm. And the ABLE accounts, again, before the ABLE accounts, the only way that a person with a disability could save any funds was in a special needs trust. The ABLE accounts you can open with $50. They do have a cap depending on which one you use. You can use Georgia's. I mean, as long as you have a qualified disability, you don't have to use the one that's in your state. You can, if you're in Georgia and you like the ABLE account in Ohio better, you can use that one, which is actually that's the so-called gold standard. That one was around first. A lot of states will use a lot of their what they put in their plans. But the special needs trust, depending on, it's such a specialized document. The costs vary. If you find a good attorney that's reasonable, that knows what he's doing, and that's why a lot of people don't have special needs trusts, because of the expenses. And a lot of people in the legal community, they don't know what they're doing, to be honest, because it has to be set up a certain way, or you're going to jeopardize losing, waivers, government benefit, all of these things, sometimes even housing, if it's not set up correctly. And it is an irrevocable document. Once you put a special needs trust in place, it's in place. You can't, there's certain circumstances where you can modify. If the person has a miraculous healing and they are no longer disabled, if they die, or if there's not enough money in the trust to verify keeping it open, because there are certain costs that go along with having a special needs trust.
So can you give us an example? Like how much money? I mean, so there are minimums in terms of how much you need to have a special needs trust? Is that what I'm hearing? No.
Say the fees in a trust with attorney's fees, taxes, whatever. Say that's, $3,000 a year.
So they're taxable. So a special needs trust is taxable.
Yeah, it has its own EIN, and it has to it has to show what came in, what came out of the special needs trust. So, and say that the cost to keep the trust open every year is $3,000, but you're only keeping $1,000 in it. Then you can disband that trust. Again, the only other ways is if the party is no longer disabled or doesn't meet the disability requirements set by Social Security, or if they expire, and then the trust terminates.
How would a person know if they need a trust? Who's a good candidate?
Anybody. Again, we want to answer the question: what would happen to my child with a disability if something were to happen to me? Every person that asks that question should have a trust. And here's the thing: you set up the trust. Be proactive, not reactive. Set up the trust, and you can fund it with life insurance for when you're no longer here. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be funded right now. Mm-hmm. As long as you get it set up right now. Mm-hmm. You might say, okay, I'm going to go out and I'm going to get $1 million life insurance policy. Or you do your due diligence and you say, okay, my child has this disability over the course, and these are some tough, this is some tough research. This is the mortality rates. This is the life expectancy. This is the long-term. I need a certain amount of long-term care. I know that my child is not going to be able to do this, and take care of themselves. So there's going to have to be some type of caregiver involved long-term and all that. And then you assign a number to that. And and the cheapest money you're ever going to buy is life insurance. So you can say, okay, my number that I'm comfortable with is $800,000. Go buy the life insurance policy, name the trust as the beneficiary for the benefit of your child. And that's it. Mm-hmm. You don't have to put the funds in right away. Mm-hmm. And as long as there's no funds in, then no, you don't have to. There's no reporting to the IRS. There's none of that, because it's just the document. Right. It's just the bones. And if people would just take that step, that one step. Now, when you start preparing, and this is one thing that people forget about or don't consider, because you can have a special needs trust, but a great companion document to the special needs trust is the letters of instruction or letters of intent.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the owner's manual of your child.
Mm-hmm.
It tells what color they like. They don't like to sit by the window. They like the color blue. I want them to take a trip to, and this was a real case, I want them to take a trip to Europe once a year when I'm no longer here. And the letters of instruction can be as long or as short as you want. And it's not a binding legal document, but it's a great companion piece to let the courts know what your wishes are for your child. And a great idea is to create the letters of instruction and then make copies of it and give them out to people that you trust in your family, mm-hmm. so that it is clear, this is what I want for my child.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have the special needs trust and the letters of instruction or letters of intent, depending on who you talk to, then now you've got a crystal clear picture of what your wishes are for your child.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So let's say I wanted to create a special needs trust for my son tomorrow. So the first thing I would do is find someone. Is that something that you prepare?
Yeah, I can assist. Again, that's a legal document as well, but a financial planner should be involved.
Okay.
Because the biggest part of the trust is the financial piece. So it's a legal document. The finances of it is the biggest part of the most important part of it.
I'm a proponent of demystifying the process for my listeners. So let's say I walk in and say, I need a special needs trust for my son. What does the process look like?
The thing that we're going to do is look at what the disability of the child
mm-hmm.
is.
Okay.
And that's the first thing I'm going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to start assigning numbers, because the trust is there for the benefit, the financial benefit of the child. That's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to go through, the long-term care part. We're going to go through everything that would make sure that if something were to happen to you, your child's quality of life would not be disrupted.
Mm-hmm.
And once we do that, get all of those numbers down. This is what I want. This is what I want it to look like. This is where we are now. He or she needs a bladder management team. They need this. Now, they have all of this, or they have access to this through government benefits. But when they are no longer here, these are the things that when I'm no longer here, I've got to consider their housing. Where, if something were to happen, where would they stay? I mean, if you look at just the state of Georgia, independent living, according to the DBHDD, it's somewhere between 14 and 16,000 is the waiting list.
Mm-hmm.
And because of the advances of technology and medication, children are outliving their parents.
Mm-hmm.
Children with disabilities are outliving their parents. And the government has not, most of the government laws are antiquated.
Mm-hmm.
They stop at age 26, like disability just disappeared
mm-hmm.
at 20.
Which is horrible.
Yeah, it is. So now parents are having to look at, how's my child going to be housed, fed, in their quality of life? Do they need a wheelchair? Do they need a certain kind of bed? All of those things go into building the special needs trust, along with other wishes that you have for the child, all the way up to, I don't want, because a lot of adult children, and this is going to become an even bigger issue over the next 10 years, in my opinion, living together versus marriage.
Mm-hmm.
My child, because if you leave your child $1 million, $500,000, he's going to need to be protected from, certain kind of folks that are
predators. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all of those things go into the special needs trust. But the trust document, its primary job is to house or hold assets for the benefit of the child with a disability, jeopardizing their government benefits.
So even though we may not have any funds to fund this trust, we're sort of putting the language together about how we want this to look, about how we want our loved one cared for.
Exactly.
In the event of our demise.
Exactly.
Okay.
Along with the letter of instruction, because during COVID, we saw this more often than now. But during COVID, you had parents who had children with disabilities to get COVID, and some of them severe COVID. And even though they were alive, they couldn't care for their child. So they, had a sister or an uncle or an aunt or a grandparent that would take the child. That's where the letters of instruction become the hero, because instead of, and statistically, you've got almost 1 million folks over the age of 65 that are now taking care of their disabled grandchildren. So that's like being shot out of a cannon. But if they had a document that said, don't feed them this, don't do this, just like with your automobile, you get an owner's manual. Don't touch that button. That button will break that.
Right.
The same thing with your, and it takes so much pressure off of that caregiver. And again, the main goal here is to make sure that the child's quality of life is not disrupted.
Right. Okay. So then we've got the language in place now. So we have this quote document with the language, and we've got the letter of instruction, right? Okay. And so let's say we've got this insurance policy, and we know that we want to leave our kid, make them the beneficiary of this $1 million policy. Okay. So then once the parent passes away, those proceeds go where? Do we have to talk to our financial institution and say, do we take this piece of paper and say, hey, this is my special needs trust? We give them a copy of that. What happens to the funds? What's the next part of the process?
All of that language is in the trust. Just like, and you may have a will as a companion. This is where a will becomes important.
So does the insurance company communicate with the financial institution to put those funds in a separate account? What happens?
The answer is yes, because you name the trust as the beneficiary of the life insurance policy. Mm-hmm. So say it's the Rick Knight
there it is.
Special Needs Trust.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So the insurance company will make the check payable to the Rick Knight Special Needs Trust for the benefit of Rick Knight's kid.
And then in that trust, I have specified who I want to manage those funds.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Makes sense.
Yeah. You can do it that way, or you can use a will as a companion piece and put it in the will. Mm-hmm.
Again, the importance of having a will. There we go. Let's say my loved one passes away before all the funds are exhausted. What happens to the funds?
That's where you, again, have a secondary beneficiary, because you may have 2 children. Mm-hmm. And say one is doing well and fine, married and all of this, and they may not, and I've seen this happen a lot, they go visit their adult sibling or their sibling who has the disability in a facility, but they don't have the bandwidth to care for that individual. So you got 2 children. So you leave this to the child with the disability, and you put the other child on there, an aunt, an uncle, a sister, a brother, as a secondary beneficiary. So if something does happen, those funds will go there, or to a charity. If your child has spina bifida, you may want the remaining funds to go to a certain spina bifida association or foundation that was nice to you. Mm-hmm. So you determine where those funds go. Mm-hmm. Nobody else.
Okay. So then how much is it to at least, just cost-wise, ballpark? I know it can vary depending on the complexity of this S&T, but how expensive is it to just put the language in place, as you've said, just starting with the letter of intent and then maybe just putting the language itself in place for this S&T? What does that look like? I mean, how expensive is that?
I mean, the basement dollar amount is somewhere between $2,000 and $3,000.
Wow. Cha-ching. That's a huge price tag.
That's why a lot of people won't get it. You know, I did I wrote a book called The Good Harvest Plan. And it's a financial guide, financial planning guide for parents who have children with disabilities. During COVID, we went to one of the agencies, disability agencies, the Bobby Dodd Institute approached us about turning it into an online course. So we did. We turned it into an online course, 4 modules, government benefits, financial factors, legal factors, and family support. And within those 4 modules, we had over 100 sessions. And we ended up selling it to them. We then presented it to the Georgia Department of Education, their state schools, and they purchased our course. It's the first online life planning course exclusively for parents who have children with disabilities in the country.
Oh, wow. Okay, great.
And in there, we have from A to Z how to create a special needs trust, along with how to fill out SSI. It includes everything.
So this is something that a parent can do him or herself. Is that what you're saying?
I believe that a parent that is engaged, yes, because if you can follow instructions, you can do this.
Okay.
It's just that it's so overwhelming. And not only that, this is what I found. And I've been doing this for 26 years, planning for parents who have disabilities for the last 11. And the one common denominator is when you get into the planning of the special needs trust is acceptance. When parents finally say, I need a special needs trust, that means they've accepted their child is not going to get better.
Right.
I've had so many parents that will say, we wake up every morning hoping, praying that this is the day that he's going to be better or she's going to be better.
Right.
So that acceptance hurdle is a big thing. It's a huge thing. People put it off. Number one, because it's a lot of paperwork. I mean, it's a lot of personal information, and you're planning for your demise and planning for when you're not here for your child anymore. And that's a
and it's heartbreaking. It's a tough place to be. The will is bad enough, right? And then you're putting together this trust, right? It's a lot. It's taxing emotionally. Mentally, emotionally. I mean, it's a hard thing to do, right?
When I plan, I always make sure that there's a box of tissues in the room.
Oh, yeah. It's hard. I get it. Right. It's one of those necessary things that we have to do to protect our children. Right?
It is. Again, it's you speaking on behalf of your child when you're no longer here.
That's right. Right.
You're making sure that they're taken care of when you're no longer here. That is how, and that is, there's no more beautiful legacy than that.
Absolutely. I totally agree.
I lost my mom 3 years ago, and I still I still have some of her things that are comforting from when I was, a child. So she's still here, and that's how the parent needs to look at. Even though I'm not here in flesh and bone, I'm with you every day. I made sure I was going to be with you every day.
Totally understand that. And that's a beautiful way to summarize it. And hopefully that will resonate with listeners when they're thinking about putting a trust in place. How can listeners get in touch with you if they need assistance with some financial planning? What's the best way they can contact you? Can you tell us about your website?
Sure. Well, the website is yananation.com because we do more than financial plan. We have a nonprofit organization where we're endeavoring to build safe outdoor play spaces for children and adults with disabilities. But on the yananation.com website, I mean, you'll see the tab for financial planning, which has my bio and all that. The best way is to email me at rknight@servantfinancialgroup.com or give me a call at 404-573-8008. emails. I am diligent in responding quickly, and as well as the phone give me 24 hours because, I sat in a hearing yesterday fighting for someone who DeKalb County was trying to take their Medicaid.
Wow.
And we're talking about a 22-year-old adult who just had 2 strokes and brain surgery.
Oh, that's horrible.
Yeah, because they just look at a number and say decline.
Oh, no. But good that you were there fighting for them. So that's wonderful. So I hope everything turned out well for that person.
Well, we'll see. It's not nearly over.
Well, thoughts and prayers going out to that person. I'm Rosalind Martin, your host of the Black Hue Society Voices Across the Spectrum podcast. I have been speaking with Rick Knight, founder and chief servant officer of Servant Financial Group. Rick, thank you so much for joining me here on the Black Hue Society Voices Across the Spectrum podcast. Thank you so much for speaking with me, Rick.
It's been a pleasure. I really appreciate it. It's been an honor. Thank you.
Take care. Hey, don't go anywhere, because coming up will be the really dumb things people say about autism, Volume 3.
Too hype in the party, feeling like my birthday. I've been dancing all night with a bottle in my hand and a smile on my face. And we got a few more on the way. Got a couple more on the way. Got a couple more on the way. I can feel a good time coming. City on the popping, yeah, I pull up when I'm summoned. Party never stopping, we gon' give them what they wanted. It's a line outside, let them in if they want it. Hey, party people on the left side, come on. Party people on the right side. Man, it's kinda feeling like a fire in the building. We gon' tear it up as soon as we get inside. It's a jam, party going up to the end. Everybody pulling out the cam, and they feeling like the fam. And I'm feeling like the man. Everybody knows just who I am. It's a jam, party going up to the end. Everybody pulling out the cam, and they feeling like the fam. And I'm feeling like the man. Everybody knows just who I am. Too hype in the party. Feeling like my birthday. I've been dancing all night with a bottle in my hand and a smile on my face. And we got a few more on the way. Got a couple more on the way. Got a few more on the way. I feel incredible. Always put a good time on the pedestal. Only good energy in my vicinity. You feeling bad? I got the remedy and the revenue. Yeah, I got the potion. People flowing in, it's like the ocean. Popping all these bottles, man, we so good. Following the motion. I hit you out when I land. You on VIP, I do what I can. It's a jam, party going up to the end. Everybody pulling out the cam, and they feeling like the fam. And I'm feeling like the man. Everybody knows just who I am. It's a jam, party going up to the end. Everybody pulling out the cam, and they feeling like the fam. And I'm feeling like the man. Everybody knows just who I am. Too hype in the party. Feeling like my birthday. I've been dancing all night with a bottle in my hand and a smile on my face. And we got a few more on the way. Got a couple more on the way. Got a few more on the way.
I'm Rosalind Martin, your host of the Black Hue Society Voices Across the Spectrum podcast. I'm back to share the really dumb things people say about autism, Volume 3. There's no known cure for ASD or any sort of pill to cause it to magically disappear. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, or CDC, ASD is a developmental disability that can cause significant social, communication, and behavioral challenges. Also, according to the CDC, behavioral interventions are often used to address the deficits in these 3 core domains, but there are no treatments, pharmacological or behavioral, proven to cure ASD. That said, as Black parents of adult children with ASD, many of us have been indoctrinated to the many ignorant, hateful, and just plain old really dumb things that people say about our loved ones with ASD. While there have been so many advances around the treatment and care of individuals on the spectrum, it's baffling that people could still be so uneducated about ASD. In this segment titled, the really dumb things that people say about autism, I'll share some things that people have said about ASD itself and to and about people who have it. Keep listening. Some of them are truly head scratchers. Number 1. I was told by my sister's friend, "You can't be autistic. You worked at Starbucks." Number 2. What's wrong with them? Sidebar. You know, as if they're a defective piece of equipment. Number 3. Autism people shouldn't be allowed to drive. Number 4. It's because you didn't breastfeed. Number 5. Is he like the guy in the movie Rain Man? Let's always do our part to raise autism awareness and educate others. For tips on how to raise autism awareness and promote education, please visit blackhughessociety.com. That's blackhues, Hues, society.com. I'm Rosalind Martin, and I've been your host here on the Black Hughes Society Voices Across the Spectrum podcast. I hope this episode was both enlightening and uplifting for you. Thanks for listening. Like what you heard? Be sure to subscribe to and download the Black Hughes Society Voices Across the Spectrum podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all other platforms, and get new episodes as they become available. Tell your family and friends about it too, because I've got another great episode coming up where we as Black parents who have adult children with ASD will connect once again to discuss another meaningful topic. As I wrap up, let's chill out together for just a few minutes more with some music. You see, I believe in music as therapy, as a natural high, and as a salve for the soul. Until the next episode, I wish you love, peace, and positive energy. connect once again to discuss another meaningful topic. As I wrap up, let's chill out together for just a few minutes more with some music. You see, I believe in music as therapy, as a natural high, and as a salve for the soul. Until the next episode, I wish you love, peace, and positive energy.
Yeah.